One of the most common frustrations I hear from beginner and intermediate piano players is about hand coordination. They just can't coordinate two hands together. Oftentimes I hear a comment saying, I can play one hand just fine, but I can't play hands together. And this is where many people give up on playing the piano because they just feel like they're not coordinated enough to play the piano. Now, is it true that some people are just more natural and coordinated in piano? It's true. Just like any sports, everybody's strengths and weaknesses are different, and some people just have it. But don't give up yet. There's a way to practice. There's a way to guarantee that you can practice and play hands together fluently. Hi, I'm Kristina Lee and welcome to Live Love Piano. I'm here to help anyone who's interested in learning to play the piano better and more fluently, taking the right steps and working on the foundation. And so today's topic is going to be about coordination. Now, if you want to go deeper and have more in-depth and more comprehensive steps of learning to play the piano, please check out my courses, Simple and Beautiful Piano for Adult Beginners and Piano Mastery Intermediate. So did you catch me when I said a lot of beginners and intermediate piano players have this frustration about coordination and sometimes they quit at this point? This is an interesting thing. Actually, when students go beyond about mid-intermediate level, coordination is not the main issue or it's not the main frustration because by then students learn how to work on coordination. The issues become more like technique, and yes, coordination can be more challenging if they're working on a piece with a lot of polyrhythm. But otherwise, when you get to about middle of intermediate level, you have learned enough and you should have learned the skills to work on coordination in a way that makes sense to your body. By then also, your body has accepted the different kind of coordination playing the piano requires. So it becomes more of your natural habitat. But many beginners and early to mid-intermediate players feel like they're just not coordinated at times. I'm going to explain why that is happening and how to work on it. And I'm going to use two pieces, a piece by Handel called Gavotte, and a very famous piece, River Flows in You by Iruma, as examples on how to work on coordination between hands. Remember earlier I said I get comments where people say, oh, I can play one hand perfectly. And I get the same comment when I do private lessons. Students come in, they say, oh, I'm gonna try hands together. I said, go ahead. And they say, oh, well, I played it so much better by myself and I can play hands just perfectly or really well. I said, okay, let's do that. Let me hear you play one hand at a time. And usually it doesn't go so well. So if you're one of those people, I can play one hand just fine, but I cannot play hands together, you probably cannot play one hand perfectly. And let me define what it means to play one hand perfectly. In fact, this topic was covered in my video last week about slow practice, the magic pill. And in that video, I basically talk about how to work on just one hand. And I say that when you practice one hand at a time, you have to have several things in place to say that you are practicing correctly. One is a note. You got to get the right notes. Number two, with the notes, you got to get the right fingering. You got to get a consistent fingering. I talk about how when it comes to fingering, there is like standard movement that we learn as pianists, but also everybody comes with their own physique. So that may not work for everyone. So you might have to find a fingering that works better for you, but whatever the case is, you have to know what fingering you're using intentionally. Now, when you're practicing just one hand, things become much more predictable. If it's a step high and you're playing with second finger and with the right hand, it's probably gonna be third finger. It's not too hard to figure this out if you're just taking time to work on your notes and fingering one hand at a time. But when you start putting hands together, the amount of information your brain has to process to coordinate the hands and the movement from one finger to another in the context of music, it's not like, oh, here's my information and here's my information and it's double the information. It's like triple, quadruple, even 5 times. In some music, it can even feel like 10 times more the information than when you're just doing one hand at a time. So we can't start with 3 times more the information. You have to start by doing one thing well. And in piano, that's working on hands separate. Let's use gavotte by Handel as an example here. Right hand, we have a fingering. It's E and finger number 3. We can read that and it's F, E, D. So everything is within my 5-finger position. And then G is going to be 5. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2. Great. Okay. And then now we're going to work on the left hand. So middle C. Easy. You want to be able to do this with correct notes, correct fingering, and you want to be able to understand the counting. Okay, so it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. The last thing is being able to play steadily. Right now I play quite steadily. But when you're playing for the first time and counting, it's not going to be necessarily like that. If it's piece for your level, you might be like 1 and 2 and 3 and, okay, that's G, number 5, 4 and then 1 and 2 and repeat. I have to lift my hand, 3 and 4 and. It might be more like that. It's not steady. But you see how I was still counting with the notes? That's important. That's the earlier step. And then playing with steady beat is the next step. So you want to be able to do that. This is the topic that I cover in my video from last week on slow practice. So you can get more details on how to practice slowly using that video. So let's say that we are going to put hands together. So first, and then it takes some time for many students. Okay, right hand is gonna be like second finger, but like what's the left hand? Oh, go down. Okay, 2 and 2, right? So it's extremely helpful just to have some fingering. You see, I didn't need fingering when I was just looking at one hand. But as soon as I start doing hands together, I end up needing more fingering, because when the right hand and left hand are playing something together, it's really extremely helpful to know which fingers are coordinating together. So 2 and 2. And then you might feel a little lost here too. Okay, left hand is gonna be step down 3. So I would go ahead and write all of these helpful things down. I talk about this in my course a lot, like writing, fingering down is not cheating. Many adults, it's true for all ages. People resist writing notes down, resist writing fingering down. It's very strange. I always say, when you gather for rehearsal, and let's say this is like, people of all levels, professional and amateurs, you know who brings the pencil with them or a writing utensil? It's the professionals. Oftentimes, I'm sorry, I'm generalizing, the amateurs are the ones who don't bring a writing utensil or a way of writing notes in their music, because they don't realize that if you can just write notes down in your music, including fingering is a big part of it, and you can remind yourself, your ability to catch the music on time becomes super elevated. So like, why wouldn't you do that? We don't want you to like struggle every single time. We want you to teach your body how to coordinate. And if your brain and your eyes can process what are the things that you're coordinating together visually with fingering, you're just gonna get there much quicker and more accurately. And when you do that, you're just gonna be able to learning coordination much quicker and efficiently. When you don't do this, what happens is that people get it wrong. They get it wrong and they go, oh, no. This happens. Now, every time you hit a wrong note, it gets registered in your body and your brain. And this is why I just cringe when a student's like, and they do this every time. Because once you do it, you have to undo it by doing the right thing multiple times. So try to get it right the first time. Take your time. Take your time. Hold there. You don't have to rush. Okay, left hand 3, right hand 1. Literally, this is what I do with a lot of my students, like private students. Like, take your time, take your time, take your time. Stop. And now process what those notes are, what the fingering is, and play. This is the first thing that you have to do. You have to be able to do things hands separately, then start putting hands together like this. As you can tell, I'm a big proponent of practicing hands separate. And I know this is not how all piano teachers feel. Some piano teachers feel like, well, you're gonna practice hands together, you're gonna play hands together, so continuously practice hands together as much as you can. Yes, playing and practicing hands together is obviously important. That's the end goal. But I believe that practicing hands separately actually in the long run makes you a better musician. It is not just about coordination. I believe that you learn about music better by paying attention to one part at a time. And this is something I learned more from like studying jazz, because in jazz, you learn everything separately. You learn the tune, you learn the chords, and you learn the bass. And so when you're practicing a piece, you're very aware of different parts. You learn to listen to different parts almost separately. Although our brain cannot really do that well, we're able to like jump from, okay, here's my melody, how is this melody sounding? Here are my chords. How are my chords sounding? And here's my bass. In classical music as well, actually, a good performance of any piece is where a pianist can really separate those voices and create different balance. Balance is volume. We want to create different volumes for different parts, even though I am playing by myself, where I have multiple parts that I'm playing, and also different quality and tone to the parts. So this is why I'm a big proponent of practicing hands separately. Now, do you have to just always practice hands separately to start with? Like, okay, E, F. Not necessarily. I would say when you start a piece, I think it's a good idea to just try to play as best as you can. Just sight read through it, hands together, because it's really helpful to get an overall picture of what's going on. And if you can play like decent, a new piece of music, decent, that's like your level of sight reading. If you cannot do that, like everything is hard and like you can barely play a couple of measures, then you should start practicing one hand at a time right away. And I know that when you're practicing one hand at a time very slowly, it doesn't even sound like music. It's like, okay. Like you're not even able to listen to music. And that's normal because you're processing so much information. So you gotta teach your body one thing at a time. Second reason you're having hard time coordinating hands is because you don't have the vertical alignment information you need. I just made that up, that phrase. Vertical alignment information. I think we should use this in piano music. Now, vertical alignment, what I mean is when you're reading piano music, and this is very specific to piano because piano is polyphonic instrument. Other instruments that just play one note at a time have just horizontal information, right? You go from here to here and you have, length of the notes, okay? Just going like this. For piano, we have to understand the vertical alignment that's moving like this. So I often say this when I explain how piano music is so different from a lot of other music for other instruments, is that it's more like reading Chinese. Because when you read Chinese, you have to read the whole character. You have to understand what that character means by itself, and you still have to have the horizontal information. You can go this way. In the olden days, I think Chinese was written like to the left. Which way, whichever way it is, you have to do both at the same time to understand the language. And piano music is more like that. So let's look at River Flows in You. And I'm just gonna start from measure 4. Pick up notes to measure 4 right here. This is the horizontal information. And then the left hand, this is that's the left hand horizontal information. Now we need to get that vertical information, which is like which fingers go with each other, right? And this information goes back to two things basically, and it's nothing new. If you've really worked on that first part that I talked about, practicing hands separately, and making sure that you have those 4 things I talked about, and slowly putting hands together, you already have done the work. One is the fingering, as I talked about, which fingers go with which finger vertically. And then the other thing is counting. Now, it's so important to be able to count one hand at a time, right? Like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Because your left hand has all of that counting too, like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. In fact, let me write down those countings. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. In fact, we should, if you are not used to playing 16th notes, you should subdivide this even further into 16 notes, which would be 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and left hand 1 E and 2 E and 1 and 4 E and. It's the counting that keeps everything aligned the way they're supposed to. So it's 1 E and 2 E and I would literally practice like this: 3 E and 4 E and. I would do that. Make sure your notes fall in with the right counting several times. Do this on E and the 2, E and the 3, E. Take your time. If you're not sure, 4, E and the. Take your time. Multiple times. 5, 6, 7 times without mistake. If you made a mistake, try to do it without mistake and then try to do it again. Just doing once is not enough. If you get it right first time, think of that as your beginner's luck and challenge yourself to get it right the second time in a row. Not just second time later, but second time in a row. That is significantly harder. If you practice like that, in the ways that I explained to you, hands separately slowly with those 4 elements in, and then the second way, which is putting the vertical information together slowly. If you practice like that, go through the pain of something really not sounding like music that you want to make, then I guarantee you, you practice like that several times well, you're gonna realize that your body has learned that coordination. The body is gonna normalize that movement. I'm not sure how many of you are artists. I started learning watercolor art some years ago during COVID. In fact, that was my first online course. By going through this course, I really fell in love with watercolor, and that's when I realized that actually I can teach people in that kind of format, and thus I ended up creating my own courses as well. But going back to watercolor, if you have done watercolor, when you do these layers, they just look like nothing. And they look so bad. You look at it, you're like, oh my gosh, this is so bad. And initially you you do 2 or 3 layers and they just look like nothing. It's not until you're towards the end of the process of adding darker values and adding those tiny little, accents here and there, it just becomes alive. And in a way, learning a piece of music is like that. It feels like you're doing it bad and wrong sometimes, and it's not. You just feel like it's gonna sound bad. I'm not making good music. But go through the pain of that. Don't give up on practicing right, because practicing right, practicing correctly is what's gonna guarantee the outcome of your piece, as well as what kind of pianist you're going to be and what kind of musician you're going to be. And I hope that you experience the joy of music, both playing and creating your own music, for every single one of you. Good luck.